Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly. On this episode, I'm joined by Dave Huff, the driving force behind Whuff Rod Co. and the Kentucky River Musky Classic. Dave shares his passion for chasing muskie on the fly and what drove him to make Whuff Rod Co. a reality. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. But before we get to the interview, just a couple of housekeeping items. If you like the podcast, please tell a friend, and please subscribe and leave us a rating and review in the podcatcher of your choice. It really helps us out. And a shout out to our newest Game Changer patron, Michael Bryan. Thanks for your support. And remember, folks, we host our community on Patreon. Check out the link in the show notes to learn more about all the great benefits like discounts on tying materials and guide trips and much more. And finally, a shout out to our sponsor, Trout Routes. We all know streams are getting crowded, and chances are you're not the only one at your local access point. Get away from the crowds and busy gravel lots by using Trout Routes Pro with over 350,000 access points, mapped across 50,000 trout streams, and much more. Trout Routes has all the data you need to help you find angling opportunities that others will overlook. Up your game and download the app today. Use code ARTFLY20, ARTFLY20, all one word, for 20% off of your Trout Routes Pro membership at maps.troutroutes.com. Now, on to our interview. Well, Dave, welcome to The Articulate Fly.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to our conversation, and we have a tradition on The Articulate Fly. We like to ask all of our guests to share their earliest fishing memory.
Okay. Yeah. Farm pond fishing for me, man. I grew up in Kentucky, rural Boone County area, and fishing with my grandpa. Probably the single moment that sticks out the most is, I was maybe 6 or 7, and I remember casting out a Rapala or something and hooking 2 fish on the same lure and bringing them in. And I remember that pretty vividly. Is after that, I was all about fishing. Like I wanted, lunch break at the farm, I was fishing. After work, I was fishing. Just trying to, chase stuff. And I was notoriously like late for dinner with my buddies. My mom would be like, we'd walk down a creek, and before you realize it, you're 2 miles down the creek and realize you have to be back for dinner in, a half hour, and you're not going to make it, kind of stuff. So, yeah, whatever kind of outdoor adventures I could get into, I always try to tie into, tie in fishing to that stuff.
Yeah, very, very neat. So when did you come to the dark side of fly fishing?
I tried it. At one point, I had a relative from like Texas that had a fly rod or something that he brought up on like a family trip, and I saw it. I tried it a couple of times, and I feel like I had I don't remember the year necessarily, but I definitely know like in my younger years, middle school age is I've tried it a few more times and didn't really pick it back up until after college. And it was one of those things where it just kind of set the rod just kind of sat in the corner, it was cool. And then other stuff got cool. I grew up racing dirt bikes and got into cars, and then college. And, I picked it back up later in life, on a trip down to, Brevard and, fishing the Davison River. That kind of like reignited fly fishing for me. And then from there it was kind of on, I still do some spin fishing from time to time, but, I'm about a 90%er when it comes to fly fishing.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. The Davidson is probably my favorite river to fish in North Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah, it was on a kind of a whim. A buddy of mine was down there. We were on a trip, and we have been talking about fly fishing, and we had new fly fishing setups that we were trying to plan this big boundary water trip, and we were gonna try to go up there and live out of canoes for 3 to 4 weeks. And take some fly rods with us. And we went down there one year, just on vacation, and we're kind of like, man, we should just book a guide trip so we could kind of take a crash course and like learning all this, because it's like, I was like, it's way different from when I did it growing up. And we met up with a guide down there by the name of Jeb. And I remember we showed up and looked like noobs probably. And, we get out in the water, and the first thing he said to us is said, "This ain't a river runs through it, and woolly buggers ain't shit." He's like, you're not going to be waving these things around in the air all day trying to make false casts. He's like, I'm going to show you how to roll cast. I'm going to show you how to catch some fish. And I kind of looked at my buddy. I'm like, this guy's my kind of people. So, yeah, from then it was kind of on. My buddy immediately hooked into a huge brown trout. That the guide kind of opened his eyes when he saw it jump out of the water and realized it was a big one. And we caught a bunch more fish that day, and yeah, rest is history. Now it's just a challenge of getting out as many days as I can and trying to learn as many different, styles of fishing that you can. So,
Yeah, I bet that was Jeb Hall from Davidson River Outfitters, wasn't it?
oh yeah, he's a madman.
Yeah, I've known those guys forever, and I have a tradition with my boys. I take them fishing during the Christmas holidays, and Jeb was our guide on one of those trips, because I always know that it's better for him to work with the kids, so I don't lose my patience when they were younger and yell at them and ruin the day. So,
Yep, yep, yeah. He's got a lot of patience, and he's just a really fishy dude. So,
yeah, absolutely. Jeb is a great guy. All the guys at DRO are awesome. And, so you kind of come back to it a little bit later on in your life. Who are some of the folks that have mentored you as you've gotten kind of deeper into the sport?
man, mostly guys from the fly fishing club up here, the Northern Kentucky Fly Fishers. Um, they're just there's so much knowledge there. It's an aging club. Mike Arnold um is one of the oldest members of the club, and he's actually the one that taught me how to build fly rods. And he's still there. He's still active with the club. He still teaches rod building. Um, and I'm one of those dudes, like my wife knows when we go on vacation, I'm gonna disappear for a couple hours, and she can always probably find me at the old bait shop talking to the old crusty salty dudes. Like, she just knows that she's gonna lose me for a couple hours to those dudes. I just love hearing stories and love learning. And those guys are just a wealth of knowledge. And yeah, they're probably some of my, as far as fly fishing goes, like some of my biggest mentors came from the NKFF for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know Mike Arnold from my time as the president of the Southeastern Council of FFF. And
Yeah.
yeah, he's a great guy. And he was always doing tons of stuff with the council. I haven't seen him in a long time because the council wasn't as active as it has been, and it's kind of coming back. But yeah, he's a great person to learn from for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so kind of funny, right? So, Whuff Rod Company is almost 10 years old. You kind of get into fly fishing, like, what makes you crazy enough to want to start a rod company?
I mean, in the early days, I was doing custom rods. So I started doing custom rods in 2016. Um, and I just basically, I really enjoyed the process. Um, my background in design, creating things has always been something that I love to do. I mean, even in my full-time job, I build mountain bike trails and hiking trails for a living. So we're just creating things in nature and forests and trying to make things out of dirt that look like they've been there for 10 years. Um, so yeah, I mean, started doing custom rods. It got to a point where with the full-time job, I just couldn't really, I hated the fact that I had to tell people like, hey, it might be, 4 or 5 months before I can get your rod done. that was like that for me, that was like the turning point from where it went from like Dave building rods on his kitchen table or in the basement, in his garage, whatever, to like trying to figure out like maybe this needs to be something else. And then the icing on the cake for me for the actual birth of Whuff Rod Co was I was like I started fly fishing for muskie 10 years ago or something. Um and I just didn't enjoy the rods. They weren't, I tried a few and they just like I didn't know what I didn't like, but I knew I didn't like them, Um and that's when I kind of went to the drawing board and I was super active in my club, the local club, and we were getting a ton of like new members every month. Like we were getting like 10 or 12 new members showing up to the fly club, and then they weren't coming back. So like there's like a little culmination of, not loving the fly rods that I had access to, seeing people that were really passionate about fly fishing, not come back to the meetings. And I just kind of, my brain is so focused on like the better mousetrap, so to speak. I kind of put my head down and realized like most of the people were going to our local shop. They were trying on waders. They were doing all the stuff that they were taught to do, to get set up. And then they'd go to the rods and they'd put a Thomas and Thomas in front of them and they'd be like, holy crap, like I'm going to be spending like $2,000 to go fly fishing. And then, it was kind of like, I'm fine with just spin fishing, they didn't know another way. So it was a little bit of rod performance. I wanted something that wasn't, necessarily super popular at that time. And then price. I wanted to be able to provide a rod that had really good quality at an affordable cost so that people could actually get out and enjoy fishing and not be stressed about saving money to buy a fly rod.
Yeah, got it. And so, tell me a little bit, you were saying there was something specifically you didn't like in the musky sticks you were fishing. So tell me like how that translated into the style and feel of the Whuff Rod Co rods.
I just, they were really stiff and didn't handle musky flies well, and at that time, I didn't know why, because I didn't know enough about fly rod design. I just knew I didn't like it. And when I don't like something, I try to figure out how to make it work. I can work with anything, but I know what I want. And I know what I don't like, and I think part of it is the long time frame from when I learned how to fly fish to where I picked it back up to where, you know, I just remember as a kid and, being younger, how much feeling and like soul a fly rod had. Like that was the thing I loved about it is you could feel the fish, you could feel the cast. When you caught a fish, you could feel the fight. Um, and these fly rods I was using for muskie, they're looking at it now, they were just essentially rebranded saltwater rods that weren't made to throw wet socks, at tree stumps. They were made for throwing little flies through wind. They had a lot of tip feel, and that was about it. And that's just not what I went back to the drawing board and I wanted to provide a really mid flex heavy rod that you could cast day in and day out for an entire 4-day trip and not wear yourself out. And it would be built like a tank and affordable. And that's the River Wolf, one of our rods, the 11 weight. That was the first rod that I actually developed, was an 11 weight, which is probably not something most fly companies start with, but that's where I went. So,
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think having a little bit more feel in the rod certainly helps from a timing perspective and, because you feel the rod better and it makes it, I think, fishing a rod with a little bit more soul actually makes it more pleasant because you don't have to sit there and watch what's happening because you can feel what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you have a background in industrial design. Tell me a little bit about how that kind of works its way kind of into your rod designs and your manufacturing process.
I mean, for the most part, I probably did things really backwards from like what a traditional fly rod company would do. I just kind of started ordering blanks, figuring out the ones that I really liked, figuring out like learning about tapers and learning about mandrels, and um, I I designed the first few ones of my rods. I designed them out of feel, like reverse engineering them essentially off of like blanks that I would just order from a catalog, until I found the ones that I liked. And then from there, doing some measurements, figuring out what I liked about them and what made them, react the way they did. Not having that background, fly fishing wise, but having the industrial design background to kind of know like how to take something apart and dissect it and really like figure it out. Um, that's kind of where the influence part comes in is, obviously like people know us from our colors. Our colors are definitely stand out against the crowd. And that was another thing. The industrial design side of me was like if I'm going to come out here and I'm going to come out swinging against all these big companies, I got to not look like all those big companies. If I come out with you know, a standard green rod with black wraps or a black rod with gray wraps, like I'm going to get lost in the crowd real quick.
Yeah. Plus, it helps, when people bump into people fishing your rods on the water and they're like, well, what's that kind of lime green rod? Who made that? Right.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, and it's great. Like we've been a major supporter of like the Beast of the East tournament for the last 4 years or 5 years now. And um it's cool being on the water in a tournament setting and seeing a bunch of our like blue 12 weights with bright orange wraps standing up in a rod tube, like going, flying down the river. You can see them right away. Um, yeah, and it's been cool. I mean, I've had a lot of really great feedback of people like really like the rods, and even at trade shows and stuff, it surprisingly had a good amount of older folks that voice their opinions positively, that they're like, man, these things look so great. Sometimes those other rods just got really boring. And I'm like, dude, coming from like a 78-year-old dude, that's pretty cool. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder too. So I was kind of curious. So have you found people making blanks that you like, or have you gotten to designing tapers that you like and you have people making the blanks for you?
So I have a factory overseas. They have their own full R&D facility. Um and I basically utilize their R&D facility to produce me tapers that I want. In the beginning, it might like the 11 weight. I think I built 10 or 11 rods before I was like, this is the one. Um, I've used the same shop from day one when I decided to go factory built. Um, I still build all the originals. Um, and I've got a really good working relationship with them. At this point, I can kind of tell them what tweaks I want to make, and they'll send me a blank to test. Um, and the last two or three, um, man, they nail them, dude, straight out of the gate. That like our communication's so good after 5 years. I've been dealing with the same person in the company, um, and it's been great. They own all the mandrels. And that's just a cost thing for me right now. Like it's not super important for me to own the mandrel. It's more important for me to have access to a full R&D facility that can tweak, tapers and do things that I want. Cause I don't have the ability to build my own, facility like that yet. So, they do. they do all that. I do all the specs, and then I'll blueprint a rod once I get it where I want it. I'll spec the taper that's the whatever the final revision is. I'll spec that, and then I'll spec everything down to thread wrap, color, spacing, guides, cork grade, rating, grain window, the whole deal. And then do all the artwork for them. And it's a cool process. Um, I enjoy it. I really do enjoy it. Um, you know, the first few rods that I developed were I really, the 5 weight, the 7 weight, and our 11 weight. Um, they have like that more mid flex feel. Really got a ton of soul to them, and just kind of take you back to your roots cast kind of feeling. But then I've got some other rods that have a little bit more action to them, and a little lighter, a little faster. So there's a little bit of everything. That every one of our rods isn't built on the same taper or blank material. So
Very neat. And so, it's kind of interesting hearing you talk about having stuff made overseas. How are you dealing with the tariff stuff right now?
so far, so good. I know some companies are having a little harder time than we are. It's the biggest hurdle for us has been freight costs. The freight companies are really dinging you. Their freight costs have doubled over what they were, which is unfortunate. I think they're trying to take advantage of a situation more than the costs haven't gone up that much for them. It's just um, they see a chink in the armor and they go for the throat, right? So
Well, let's hope that that gets better and the tariff stuff doesn't cause you any lost sleep, right?
yeah, man, I'm gonna we had a few questions about that this year at the trade shows and things, and I just kind of told them, like we know our numbers. We're gonna try to hold steadfast as far and long as we can to our current pricing. Um, and if we got to make changes, we do. But for now, my wife and I are the entire company, and we're both comfortable with where we're at. And we want to try to. I'd rather get more rods out in people's hands fishing than pad my pockets more. So
Yeah. And so, kind of help me kind of, help our listeners kind of understand what differentiates your rides, in the sense of, you're at a great price point. How do you compare to like the super high price points in terms of performance and warranties and things like that? And then similarly to kind of come down, I think one of the things that, like, for example, TFO really did in the fly rod business is basically made everyone start to make, well, for lack of a better word, like an entry, mid-level, and high-level rod. How do you kind of compare to, other kind of, entry-level rods from other manufacturers?
yeah, I mean, the beauty of it is we're so new that our biggest hurdle is getting our name in front of people. Our rods perform very, very well. And most people that test cast one of our rods at a trade show, um, their immediate response is this rod tests or this rod casts as good as X, Y, or Z, which are typically all $400 to $500 rods, and then the other thing is like, I can't believe this, you're selling these rods for this much, you know? And we've got about a 75% conversion rate at trade shows. If we're at a trade show that has a casting lane and the availability for people to pick a rod up and go cast it, about 75% of those people come back and buy a rod. So, um, I think that we're doing the right thing. We've grown organically. I've been a super big proponent from day one. I don't believe in flash in the pan marketing. I want to grow organically and slowly. Word of mouth is still king no matter what, we don't buy likes, we don't buy followers. And we put our money where our mouth is. And I think, from a rod's perspective, a lot of our 250 $250 plus rods are built on Fuji Alkanite guides, really good modulus blanks. Um, you know, the componentry is there. You can see it and feel it. Another cool thing for us, from a sales perspective, everything 6 weight and above comes with an extra tip in the rod tube. Um, Part of my reasoning for that is just because I've been on trips before where I did something stupid and broke a tip, and it just ruined my trip because I was just bummed. So having an extra one there, um, you know, it it's not a huge thing, but it's something. It's a nod to let people know, like, hey, man, like I grew up fishing and traveling and fishing, and uh, we're trying to think through all those little details. Um, Another really big thing that we do that a lot of companies don't do, we do not replace sections of a rod. I just don't agree with it. I've never had a good experience with trying to get one section replaced on a rod. The rod just has never felt the same ever again. So if one of our customers breaks a rod, um, there is a replacement fee, $65 plus shipping. And, if it's on their side, if they smash it in a car door or something, $65 plus shipping, they're getting a brand new fly rod shipped to their door. And if it's something on our end, they have a guide failure or something happens that we can identify as a quality issue, then we ship them a brand new rod on our dime. So, I think that's something that's kind of unheard of in the industry. Most people don't know it. That's our policy just because we're so small still, but it's just another thing that we do to try to get people back out fishing quickly and not have ongoing problems with a rod that they have, three sections that are 2 years old and then one section that's brand new. It's just, it's a philosophy that we're going to stick with. And, you know, it's obviously not the best financial model, but we're, uh, we're willing to put our money where our mouth is, and we want people to be happy with our product and get back out to fishing.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. We should have a few beers sometime and talk about organic growth, because I think I actually think it's a superpower in this day and age. And I think the more and more we see technology, I think it's going to be more and more important for real companies to grow their businesses.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a man's word is always going to be valuable, and organic growth is a lot like that. Organic growth to me is kind of like a man's handshake, right? So, it's not something, if you stand behind it and you stand behind your product and you do what you say you're going to do, and I think yeah, I mean, in this world of AI and all this other stuff, like, people can create fake things, but if you're a human doing good things and being a good person and creating a good brand and sticking behind it, like, they can't take that away from you. So,
Yeah, and I've never understood this whole game of buying followers. It just makes no sense to me.
man, when you start putting a dollar figure to it, that's how they make it make sense. That's where it went wrong. So every 10,000 followers you get is a dollar amount, and that's when things kind of go askew a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, like, in my world, you know, I don't believe in buying the listeners and the followers, because when you go to sell advertising, you want to sell people real engagement, right? It's also too, like, I don't know how you feel about promotions and things like that, but I'm very promotion averse unless it's got a really good kind of reason behind it, because I think, my feeling is people understand what free means, and you're not really testing anything other than people that are looking for, free tires, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're kind of similar to that. I mean, we get people, do you have a pro staff? And, I kind of always tell them like everyone's, like our rod prices are pretty affordable. And when you buy a rod, you become a member of the Wolf Pack, and the Wolf Pack's our pro staff, like we've got folks in Canada and in America, here in the North America too. Like they bought one rod, and within a year they own every rod we make, and like they paid full price for all of them. And like when we went to Canada for the Toronto Sportsman Show this year, um, two customers that I met at a fly fishing muskie tournament in 2019, um, they took days off to come work the booth with us. Like just surprised me. Like they didn't, they were like, oh, I just thought they meant like they were going to come hang out or like see us. Like they're like, no, we took the days off to come help you work the booth, like taking people over to the casting lane to like teach them how to cast and fly, like work with kids and things, because they just knew like we were going to be inundated with people. I think like 70,000 people came through that show in 4 days. So like that's something you can't buy.
Yeah, I would say too. I mean, it's the real power of it is, plenty of people will fish and wear stuff that people give them for free.
Yep.
Right. And so, kind of to that point, like I'm a big believer, like I just tell people like, this is what I spend my money on. Right. And I think that's a very, very powerful brand testimony.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, and we have started trying to mess with the guide side of things to try to get our name out there more. But I grew up racing motorcycles and bicycles too. And I've run teams and done the team manager thing. And one of the pet peeves for me as a team manager was always like, you had your bike sponsor, and the first thing you did at the beginning of the year was you got your discounts and everyone ordered all their parts, so you got, whatever, 50, 65% off for all your stuff to get all your stuff ready to build your bike to go for the racing, and then it was crickets. The whole deal was, here, you guys are going to be on this team. You're going to get your jerseys. You're going to get all your parts, and then you're going to race all season, and you're going to do all these things on social media and promote the companies that support us. And then once they got their stuff, it was like they forgot all that, and you can't take it all back because they did pay for it, to some degree. And that was my worry with the whole pro deal, like guide ambassador thing, was like how do you patrol that? We're going up against these huge companies that, you might get a new guide that wants to get a good deal on some rods, but the first chance they get, or the first sniff they get by G Loomis or one of these big companies to get some support, like the first thing they do is drop us, because Orvis or G Loomis is way cooler, right? So it's a hard thing to police. So we just kind of done that organically too, you know. And I've just met people along the way and kind of let them ask me what they want, what they need. Most of them want to support us because they like us as humans, and they think the rods cast well, and they're not under any kind of obligation through a shop to run a certain brand in their boat, So we're still playing with it. We've got a couple different tiers of guide ambassadorship, so if guides are out there and they want to get some of our product in their boats, we usually test the waters with a smaller discount, see if they're gonna do what they say they're gonna do, and then they can work their way up into a bigger discount as a guide, because it is important. When people are out catching fish, they look down and see what they're fishing usually, and if we could get some brand recognition out of that, it's important. So
yeah, very, very neat. And so why don't you, Dave, walk us through, I think you've got about a half a dozen specific rods. You want to walk us through those?
Yeah. So we have everything from a 10-foot 3 weight up to a 9-foot 12 weight. So we've got our high stick, which is our 10-foot 3 weight. Um, Great entry level price at 179. I mean, it's a fun casting rod. Whether you're Kentucky farm ponding for panfish out of a canoe, tons of guys do that. They just use that extra 1 foot of length to roll cast a cast out there while they're sitting down. It's an effortless casting rod. Uh, great option for someone that wants to not just have a 10-foot 3 weight that is solely just built for Euro nymphing. Like it casts well, um, it roll casts well. It doesn't have a down locking reel seat on it. I did that for a reason. I left a little bit of room in the quiver to develop a more Euro specific rod down the road as we grew. Um, and then our 9-foot 5 weight, the roll caster. It's going to be more of a medium action rod. A lot of people compare it to like the Reddington Classic Trout, like that kind of a feeling rod. So lot more forgiveness, a little bit more soul. Roll casts beautifully. Um, the beauty of that rod, when I was developing it, I really wanted a rod that was light in hand, but like a beginner could pick up and put a loop together and not feel like they're fighting the rod the whole time. Um, and it's cool watching people pick that rod up for the first time. Even like casting instructors, they'll pick it up and they'll try to cast it like a super fast dry fly rod or something, and um they'll slow down their cast and get it, and then they'll weld it. It's like they can immediately adjust to that rod and get it working the way it needs to. And then you pick up a beginner, will pick it up and go out there, and they immediately have confidence. Um, so that's our 9-foot 5 weight. We have got a 9-foot 6 weight with a fighting butt called the fish whistle. That's going to be our first rod that has more of a salt inspired taper, a little lighter, modulus, a little more tip action. So it's a little lighter, a little faster. That rod was originally designed for fishing, docklight fishing for juvenile tarpon and snook down in Florida for a guide buddy of mine. And once I got done with it, I just really enjoyed casting it. I was like, man, I need to add this one to the lineup. So 9-foot 6 weight fish whistle. Then our 9-foot 7 is the streamer stick. That is going to be going back to more of the traditional mid flex feeling rod. Super fun to cast. All of our rods are kind of named something a little different, and based off of their kind of indicative of what their qualities are. So that one's 179 price point for that one, because of the componentries, a little bit more in line with the 5-weight stuff. The next rod that we have is the 8-foot bomber is our graphite 8-weight. The 9-foot 8-weight bomber. That one is built on a similar taper to our 6-weight, so a little lighter, a little faster, salt inspired Fuji alkanite guides, spare tip. Yeah, lot of fun for your snook, redfish, sea trout, things like that. And we have another 8-weight is a 8-foot 8-weight power glass, which is a fiberglass rod. Super fun carp rod. It's got a lot of power. Started that rod out as a 9-footer and didn't like it, but then got it down. Once I got it down to the 8-foot range, it was punching through some wind. I did a lot of testing down in Texas for that, red fishing, and it just turned into a really fun rod. I kind of I knew I wanted to add at least one fiberglass rod in the lineup, and it was I didn't want to do a 3 weight or anything real light because there's a ton of people doing them, and I was kind of sold on the 8 weight because of its versatility. I feel like um, you can take that thing to a little creek and catch some panfish, and it's still fun. Or you could really, go catch some bigger fish, and it's forgiving enough to, I've got customers that have caught 30-inch, pike and muskie on it up north. So it's got a good range, as for a glass rod. Um, and then going back to the graphite stuff, we've got a 9-foot 9-weight, strip set, which, also built on that faster taper like the 6 and the 8. Um, and then we've got our River Wolf, which is our 9-foot 11 musky stick. That comes in two colors, like a gold metallic and orange, or an OD green matte and black. Um, and that's going to have that medium deep flex for casting bigger, heavier flies, and just a rod that's really comfortable to cast like day in and day out for like 4 days at a time, And then we've got our 9-foot 12-weight, which is the double haul, which is a little bit lighter and a little bit faster than our 11. A lot of people use it for muskie, but it's a great rod to go take to the salt. If you're a dude that primarily fishes freshwater and you want to do a couple tarpon trips a year or whatever, one a year, it's a great option for that, and for amberjacks and bigger fish in the salt. So yeah, that's our current lineup, and we're working on some other stuff too. So
Yeah. Can you tease any details of the other stuff?
yeah, so been working on a shorter rod, working on a 7-foot, probably. I was kind of up in the air between a 7.1 and a 7.3, trying to figure out what I want. I think it's going to end up being a 7-foot 2-weight called the Pocket Knife. And that's just come out of, we've had a lot of requests for a shorter rod, especially in the Appalachians and the brook trout guys. So gonna try to create something. It's in process. And just trying to refine it a little bit and get it. Most of our rods go through about a year of testing and just prototyping before they land on the website for the general public. And then the other really cool, exciting thing I'm working on, our first lineup of mid-priced rods. Going to be called the Destination Series. Going to be built with a little bit higher end components. Haven't landed on the exact guides yet. They're either going to be like sea guides or recoil guides. It's the jury's still out on that. I'm testing both. There's some pros and cons to both of them, but the modulus is going to be a little lighter, a little faster. The reel seat's going to be nicer. The cork's going to be nicer. Price point for it, we're shooting for like a $459 price point for the Destination Series, and it's going to be the first series that we're going to offer in different sizes. So you'll be able to go on the website and order anything from a 7 up through like a 12 or a 14 weight. So up until now, our rods have all been just whatever that model that's that color and that's the size. So this will be the first like step into our like mid-priced range. And I've also kind of my goal is to be able to create a price point around the $459 range, with a lot of performance. And ultimately what I want to do is I want people to be able to go on our website and buy a 3-pack of rods for what the cost of like one Helios costs. So people are trying to go on a trip to, Belize. They want to knock out the slam. They can go. I'm working on some packaging designs so that they could, buy an 8, 10, 12 3-pack that comes in a case. They can just buy all that for $1,200, jump on a plane and be set, take some reels with them, So that's kind of one of the more exciting projects I've been working on. And I've got a lot of hours in on the 12-weight. that I've been testing, and everyone that's casted it's really loved it. So I'm excited to get those out there.
Yeah. So when should folks expect to see those on the website?
Man, no, I don't have an exact date on it yet. It's a big ask from us financially to get that inventory in. That's the biggest hurdle for us right now. The rod development is farther ahead than you know, we just got to be careful. Most of them it's kind of easy because we can bring in, you know, a couple hundred of a 9 weight or something. But when you're bringing in a couple hundred of seven through 12, like you're talking a pretty big chunk. So we're just trying to see, you know, test the waters. We're working on some other marketing stuff to try to get in a few more shops and things like that, and really get some samples in people's hands so that we kind of have a little bit more product moving across the country versus just in the eastern side where we're at now. And make us feel a little bit more comfortable about making that last push, you know. So
No, I got it, because it'll probably more than double your inventory to make that purchase, right?
yeah, for sure. And honestly, we were kind of you know, kind of waiting to see what the tariff thing did too. You know, you don't want to go drop or order for 1,400 rods or, you know, 2,000 rods um, right away. And we got a decent shipment of rods in to refill some inventory that we were sold out on a few models, you know, about a month and a half ago. And pleasantly surprised that the tariffs didn't really affect us as bad. So kind of refocused and like, all right, well, maybe we can make this happen. So the biggest thing for me is like just making sure the testing's exactly the way we want it. So I'm going to get some final samples back from the R&D facility, and hopefully be able to show some of those off during show season. And what I'd really like to do is push some orders through show season so they can, you know, show up in March or April and hit the shelves. So
Yeah, absolutely. You know, folks may not know that you are also the founder of the Kentucky River Musky Classic, and just kind of curious, you know, when did you get the fever to chase muskie on the fly?
oh man, like 2015, I think I started. 2015 late, like that fall, and then it's kind of just, yeah, it's been 10 years now. So um I'm, you know, I think for me it's a heritage thing. They're native to Kentucky. Um I just got really interested. Anything that's super challenging and is like something that most people just would think is dumb and pointless. Those are the things that I get attached to somehow. And musky fishing was one of those things, you know. It was a challenge. It was, um, you know, you get your highs and your lows. And once I started catching a few fish, floating some beautiful rivers in my home state, and learning about all of the history of those rivers with the Indians, and, you know, the hunting and the backstories of all these, you know, these rivers and creeks. It just, you know, it kind of stuck with me. And then uh the community behind it too was just so cool. And um yeah, yeah, just was kind of drawn to it. And I've met a lot of awesome folks along the way um because of the musky fishing thing. I mean, I would say if anything, it's been one of the harder hurdles for us to to cover or get away from. Like, if all I had to do was sell musky rods, I'd be fine. Just trying to let people know we sell other rods, you know. So I was so heavily focused in the musky community from the beginning, um, just trying to get our name out there to the world, you know.
Yeah, very neat. So tell us a little bit more about the event.
Yeah, so last weekend in February, started 2 years ago. We had 21 teams, I believe, the first year. The second year we had 40 teams. Two teams didn't show, so we ended up with 38 total teams and 112 anglers. So huge growth and within the first year. This second year we had 38 teams, 112 anglers, and 38 fish got boated. So, really, really good outcome for the tournament. Um, Most folks didn't even think we were going to be able to put the tournament on, because 3 weeks before the tournament we had like historic, like catastrophic flooding that affected southern Kentucky, in a lot of the waters that we were fishing. Even during the tournament, about 2/3 of the fishable water um, was just not fishable because the rivers were just getting blown out, because all the reservoirs above them were just full. So the dams were just wide open, you know? So, to have that good of a turnout, everyone had a blast. Everyone was catching fish and seeing fish. Um, it was cool to see, and we're going to continue to grow it every year and just make it better, and try to raise as much money for the Muskies Inc. chapter 52, the Daniel Boone chapter. Um, we're, it's, it was an idea, and we are trying to figure out ways to help them raise some more money. And the growth of the tournament has actually got us a seat at the table with some of the fisheries biologists and people that we actually need to be talking with to make some changes, because we've had some really bad stocking years. COVID didn't help, and then it kind of just snowballed from there. So we're trying to make some changes. We've got the hatchery there at the bottom of Cave Run has had a lot of water problems in the last few years, just with algae blooms and things like that. So the fish health has been bad, and they're going to change some of that up, and grow some muskies at a different facility that has a little bit better water situation. Um, to help us with our stocking. So, none of that would have been possible without multiple tourism boards noticing how many people were coming through their city and renting Airbnbs and buying fuel and hauling their rafts and jet boats and stuff. Like, people immediately understood, like, man, there's a lot of people coming for this. So, it's been a huge help, and we're only going to continue to hopefully raise more and more money to keep our conservation good for the muskies.
Very, very neat. And so if folks wanted to get more information for February of 2026, where should they go?
You can go to the Kentucky River Musky Classic, Instagram or Facebook. We don't currently have a website, but it's managed all through social media. It's been great. Easy to get a hold of us. Super small group. So anybody needs any information, obviously the Instagram or Facebook page, and then obviously you can reach out to the Whuff Rod Co page too, and we can point you in the right direction on that. It's just yeah, I mean, it's just a really cool, it's such a cool river system. With I was super hard on myself. The Muskies Inc. guys were wanting to do it earlier, and I was super worried about affecting the fishery. And then we kind of sat down and we're just like, man, there's like over 500 miles of fishable water. Like, it's going to be like, the fishery's not going to be bothered by, 40 boats showing up to fish for 2 days. So, and it's been great. It really has been great. It's a beautiful river system. The Kentucky River, drainage is, it's huge. There's so many tribs. There's 3 main rivers that flow into one big river, and there's just a lot of water, and it's all filled with fish. So, yeah, definitely, look for signups soon. It's coming around the corner, I guess. We'll start getting registrations out about 6 months before the event, and it's going to fill up. It filled up last year, so I'd imagine it's going to fill up again. And then, one of the favorites from all the people that come there, Black Barn Barbecue, local barbecue place. They do our food every year, and they do it upright. They smoke chicken wings and Gouda mac and cheese and cornbread and brisket, the whole deal. We do it upright, Kentucky style. So, yeah, better get a team figured out, 3-man teams, 2-man teams, whatever you want to do, and get signed up when you see that registration pop up, because it won't take long to fill up.
Yeah, well, there you go. And so where can folks find you on the show circuit in 2026?
Oh man, so we're gonna try to hit a couple of the big fly fishing shows. I don't know exactly which ones yet. We're trying to be in Atlanta for sure. Denver's another one, but I think it's gonna it overlapped with the Trout Fest in the Guadalupe River Trout Fest last year, down in New Braunfels, Texas. So we're still trying to figure out final calendar on that. We'll definitely be back in Toronto again at the Sportsman Show. And then man, I don't know, we did like 9 shows this year. It was pretty much full bore from like January to the end of March. So we're going to be at the Virginia Fly Fishing and Wine Festival. That's in Doswell, Virginia. That'll be the first one we're at. And then we always do the Kentuckiana Fly Fishing Show. That's just south of Louisville. That's more of a local show. But it's usually on a weekend where there's no other big shows going on. And then obviously Trout Fest. We did the Midwest Fly Fishing Expo up in Warren, Michigan last year, then the Toronto show, and then we did the Maggie Valley Fly Fishing Festival this year as well. So that's our second year doing that. So probably, honestly, at this point, we're going to try to stick to all of the shows that we have been doing and then add on. So just going to try to keep growing it and tell people about our product, man, getting it in people's hands. Hopefully we can get a decent booth at a couple of these bigger shows. We are even talking about potentially trying to go to ICAST this year or next year, just to, get in front of more of the industry, so to speak.
Got it. And before I let you go tonight, Dave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Man, I just, we're here for the long haul. It's definitely a cutthroat world. The industry as a whole is just, it's always changing, but I think that, if you have an opportunity to get a hold of one of our rods, test it out. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with its performance, and just keep an eye on our website. Another thing, we're working on, I told you briefly, touch base, that we're working on some new marketing stuff, and been trying to film some YouTube stuff. So we do have a YouTube channel. It doesn't have a lot of stuff on it now, but we're gonna have some teasers out there soon. We're doing a new series on YouTube called the Wolf Pack series. So it's essentially just a series of YouTube episodes where I travel around the country and meet fly shops that carry our products, or fish with guide companies that fish our stuff on their boats. And it's going to be real professionally done. Got some great film folks helping along the way, with way more expensive stuff than I even know anything about. But I'm gonna let them capture all the stuff. I'm just gonna do my thing, which is talk to the shops and introduce people and do some fishing and hopefully catch some fish. But yeah, look for the Wolfpack series. We've got some cool stuff on the schedule. We'll be up in Canada, doing some filming with some of the folks that I've met over the years. And it should be a cool series, and hopefully another avenue for folks to learn more about us as a brand, and more about how our what our vibes are and what kind of people we are. So
yeah, and I'll drop a link to your YouTube channel in the show notes. And are there other places that folks should go to follow Whuff Rod Co, get updates on the Kentucky River Musky Classic, and just generally follow your adventures on the water?
Yeah, man. The Whuff Rod Company at Instagram and Facebook. Definitely Instagrams. We're a little heavier on that. It's just a lot easier for us to manage as a small company. And then the Kentucky River Musky Classic Instagram as well. But yeah, definitely the website whuffrodco.com has all of our stuff. Got some cool hats. Keep an eye out for some new rods popping up down the road. And then I guess the only other thing would ask is if anyone is a shop owner or even guides, if you're interested in learning more about what we have to offer and we've got some great dealer pricing, super competitive pricing, and our warranties second to none. So if you're interested in getting us in your shop, hit me up, whuffrodco@gmail. Be happy to hear more, more from you and send you a little bit more info on us.
Well, there you go. Well, Dave, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your evening to talk with me.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks.
Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed the interview as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Remember, links to all of this episode's sponsors are in the show notes. Check them out. Tight lines, everybody.